So before we get started, I'd like to take a little bit of a straw poll here. Who works in a creative capacity in an agency or services company of some sort? Okay, that's pretty good. Well, you know something then that the people who didn't raise their hands can't fully appreciate. And that is that creativity is a muscle. And it's a muscle that we all have to one degree or another. And it's like any other muscle. If you exercise it, and you feed it, you use it responsibly, it can become a very powerful tool. And you can do a lot of good with it. And if you treat it well and you treat it with respect. Over the course of the next 3 presentations this morning, you'll be exposed to the products of this force, of this muscle, and some very creative products accompanied by some very provocative and supportive points of view. And I hope that it stimulates your creative muscle as well. And when you go home tonight and somebody asks you what you were doing, instead of saying you went to FutureM, you can say you went to the gym. So welcome to FutureM. We're excited this year to be co-located with Inbound, and as you may know, FutureM is the yearly event produced by MITX. It's the signature event of the year. It's a big one, so thanks for coming out. My name is Simons. I started as an art director at Hill Holliday and Arnold before most of you were born. And for the last 25 years, I've worked at a business called PARTNERS+simons, located right out here in the Seaport area. So somebody thought that I could host this track without dropping the meat in the dirt. We'll see whether that's a good idea or not. So we'll get on with the first presentation. I think it's going to be a very good one, and it's called The Best of Boston Creative, imaginatively. We've got 3 terrific creative talents from 3 terrific agencies, and they're going to take us through 3 terrific case histories. Each of these campaigns has its own personality and its own chemistry of mechanics. These guys are all MITX winners and have highly developed creative chops. Each is going to spend about 10 minutes presenting their work. Then we'll open it up to your questions. So think of your questions as these guys are chatting. So
thanks, Tom. Really appreciate it. That was nice of you. It's great to be here. I'm so happy to be able to share some work that we are really excited about at White Rhino for a client called ASD. And I think what makes it pretty exciting is that it sort of highlights how we've been able to adapt to all the change that's happened in the digital world. And not only adapt, but help our clients really thrive with that change. So first, a little bit about how we do our thing at White Rhino. We're pretty well known for our B2B and healthcare marketing. But we don't call it B2B, we call it B2B. And why? Because you're talking to a person, you're trying to create a relationship with a real human being. And B2B is a reminder of that. And people make decisions with emotions first, and then they rationalize what they've already decided emotionally with rational arguments afterwards, which is exactly backwards the way most companies do it. And then for some reason it's especially true with B2B. Not sure why, but that seems to be the case. Second thing, something that we call addictive experience, or AX for short. So contrasted with user experience, addictive experience is anything but ordinary. It really keeps your audience glued. Now these can be digital experiences, they can be physical experiences, they can be combinations of both, but they have exponentially better results. And in a couple minutes, I'm going to show you the addictive experience that we created as part of this product launch for ASD. Speaking of ASD, just a little bit of background on who they are. They've been around for about several decades, and they make some really cool stuff. They make X-ray detection technology for security. So think about things like ports and border crossings, military installations, government, where you have to scan and image really, really big things. So they make really big products some of their products are almost the size of this room. They are huge, absolutely gigantic. And they're capable of making images that look like this. And what makes their technology really interesting is that it's not a standard X-ray. It's what's called Z backscatter. And what's special about it is it picks up organics really well. So why are organics important? Well, most of the bad guys are trying to smuggle organic things. So think about drugs, think about composite weapons, explosives, even currency, cash. That's how this technology picks it up. It picks it up like a Christmas tree. It's so bright with this technology. So now imagine this great technology has shrunk down into something that can almost fit into the palm of your hand. That's what they invented. And it was miraculous that they were able to do this. And this was the new product launch that they wanted us to help them with. This is a product that, it's handheld, it's portable, it's wireless, battery operated, and it allows you in real time to scan through any object right to your laptop or your iPad. And it's not designed for people, by the way, just sort of get that off the table. So I want to show you a 45-second spot that we created as a teaser 2 weeks before the campaign. So I hope you're sufficiently teased. And here it is, this groundbreaking product that really changes security. This thing is about yay big and literally allows you to scan things in real time. The industry has never seen anything like this, and it has incredible implications for security professionals. It allows them to solve many, many problems. And that's where this addictive experience that we created comes in. We could have just told people what the product did. We could have showed them in a video. But we thought it was really important to actually have them experience the product. So let me take you through a little bit of what that experience is like. So it's a little hard to see, but there's 4 different carefully selected environments: a city, a port, and a border, and an airfield. So why don't we go into the city first? So let's say that this means that we're probably a police officer going into the city. And as we dive in, here we are at a subway station, and the classic problem meets us, which is that there's an unattended backpack on the platform. So what usually happens, bomb squad comes in, clears out Park Street Station for 4 or 5 hours, brings the package to a remote location, blows it up. This all makes the news, only to find out that there's a science book and a Diet Coke inside there. So with the Mini Z, it actually allows you to kind of walk right up to the bag, take a swipe, and then you know what's in it. And in this case, we found a pipe bomb IED. It's a little hard to see it here, but so it's probably about the only time finding an IED would be kind of fun. So each one of these environments has a number of threats that kind of make it fun to go through and make it quite an experience. So one of the big things that I want you to take a note of is there are game mechanics built into this. So the number of threats are indicated on the left with either green or red bars. So if there's one red bar left, means there's still a threat left in the environment. So it's pretty irresistible to this audience. And your rank increases as you find new threats. So it keeps people interested. But probably the most important game mechanic is just the idea that this is an audience that is interested in finding this stuff. So here's a border crossing. People love to hide things in tires, big problem. And with Mini Z, you can find that there's cocaine in the tire. Who knew that you could do such things? So then we made it even more fun. The big problem was, how do you scan the inside of a car? Sometimes there's a teddy bear in there, or people hide things in seats. It allows you to scan it. But because we don't have time, let's go to my favorite environment, which is the airfield. And I've always been a little bit of a plane nut, but it turns out that these little remote airstrips in the middle of nowhere, great places to smuggle things. It turns out people like to smuggle things in the wings of a plane. Or even in the skin of the fuselage. So, and this is a big problem for, picture yourself guarding this airfield. What are you going to bring a proprietary plane that you come here? So, in this case, we show you how it can be used. Again, a very big problem. And hey, look, we happen to have found a gun. Of course, I know where all the stuff is. That's why it's easy to find. But it is easy to swing and miss, like it happened in real life. But I think what was really interesting about this whole experience is that it was very much driven by this B2B insight, these psychological insights, that this is an audience that is, they feel an incredible sense of responsibility and pride for what they do. So this is not just technology to help them get their job done. This is a way of really satisfying that, those deep emotional needs. So that was really the basis for creating something that was very experiential. And the results really kind of spoke for themselves. Before I get to that, you're probably wondering, yes, it's HTML5 experience and it's fully responsive. It was designed to work really well on every device. Because there's nothing worse than, you bring up a website on your smartphone and it gives you that message, sorry, it only works on a desktop. So we didn't want that experience, especially when 45% of the audience were on mobile devices. We've also used it in touchscreen environments and also used as a sales tool to help salespeople kind of leverage their sales force. And then finally, in terms of results, the results were fantastic. The average time spent was about 3.5 minutes. But on a desktop, it was quite a bit higher than that. So we got a lot of engagement. I mean, to give you an example, the demo I just took you through was about 2.5 minutes. So people were spending a lot of time. The other interesting part was that when people would come, many people came back for a second visit, and they would spend more time on that second visit, which I thought was pretty telling. But here's the number that really blew me away. The bounce rate. So for those who don't know, bounce rate means you hit a web page and then you instantly take off. So not what you're looking for from a marketing perspective. Our average bounce rate for this was 8%. And for desktop, it was 3%. 3%. According to Mashable, the average bounce rate is 50%. So I think we really have what I believe is an addictive experience. It's very, very effective. People who came here spent a lot of time with it, which is exactly what we wanted to create, that kind of emotional connection with the brand. So it was very successful. The client had a lot of great things to say about the product launch. It's really driven success for them, and very much so. And the translation of this is that they have more leads and they know what to do with it. And I want to thank the client who's here today, Crystal Boardman. Feel free to tackle her. She's a great client, and without having a great client, you really can't do great work. And I think we got some great stuff done, and you really took a risk and came up with something very different in the industry, and it's worked out really well for you. And I think that's the end of my 10 minutes, so thank you all very much.
See if we can make a smooth transition from drugs to elementary school kids. My name is Chris Pate, ECD at Genuine Interactive, and really proud to be here. It was exciting to get asked to talk about a project which we have loved working on. And so I thought today what's interesting about this project is not necessarily the results of the work, although I'm going to show you some of that. It's really the process that we took to get to the work. And so I wanted to really kind of focus on the how and not necessarily the what today. I think what's interesting to me as a creative is you hear a lot of people talk about it's all about the work. It's all about the big idea. And I really think if you're just focused on that and you're focused on telling people that they need to focus on the big idea and that's it, you're really missing sort of what's important about getting to the big idea, and that's the process. And there are a lot of factors that go into creating a great project, a great campaign, or that big idea. It's culture, it's recruiting, it's having the right talent in the room. It's having a client who's willing to innovate and do something completely different. So really what I want to talk about today are all the factors that can potentially lead to a big idea and the rigor that goes into it. And to use Tom's analogy of the creative muscle, I think people saying only focus on the big idea is like me telling myself, I want abs, and meanwhile I haven't done a sit-up in 15 years. And And so I'm only focusing on the result that I want, but not about the exercise that I need to do to get there to get the abs. I'm not even really sure if I have ribs, to let you all know. So I'm just extending the metaphor, Tom. So basically what I really want to talk about, Reckitt Beneteaser is one of our clients, and the brand that we're working with is Lysol. And Reckitt is a large company, lots of brands. They used to have more of a traditional approach to creative. The traditional agency would loft over the big idea to all the below-the-line agencies, and we would extrapolate from that big idea and create our own take. So us as a digital agency would create the digital, there would be PR, shopper experience, etc. But Reckitt decided to take a new approach, and it was called RB360. And what 360 meant is all the agencies needed to get together in a room and discuss collaboratively what that big idea should be. And as you guys all know, when agencies get together, it looks exactly like this. This is actually a shot from one of our meetings. Ignore the Shutterstock. This is a brainstorm. It's awesome. Agencies love collaborating. And it's, the client loves to see that, but the reality is it's difficult to collaborate. And collaboration is one of those things where you can't just say it, you have to work really hard at it. Because if you do, great things can happen. And that's really what this case study is about. So I'm going to walk you through the assignment. The assignment is one that they've given to agencies for years. And it was to educate elementary students about hand hygiene. It was part of a teacher program that Lysol has been doing for a number of years. And really what that meant, or what the client's initial expectations was really something like this. It was a kit that went to schools, and you guys all remember these posters that were above a sink or a water fountain. This is the why washing your hands is important. This has been around for 100 years. The same type of educational propaganda for students. Everyone's tried scare tactics. Get these kids to wash their hands. People have tried the scientific route. I always think this step process is funny because if you are really reading a poster as you're washing hands, something tells me you're not reading the poster and you probably have bigger issues anyhow. And then this one I just had to throw in. This is one I found from the California State Agricultural Department, which to me is saying, wash your hands, have a coffee, go to the bathroom. That's just how I'm reading. It's a UX thing, left to right, to bottom, but I have no idea what that means. But really, the message for Lysol and for hand hygiene in general, the message hasn't changed for 100 years. So maybe it's time to change the delivery. And so really the big idea was simple. Let's make hand hygiene an experience and not a poster. So where the idea started in our brainstorming was, well, let's put these kids at the center of the action. Let's make them the germ-fighting hero. And so what you're seeing here is a small snippet of the experience, and I'm kind of going to show you the entire experience. We used augmented reality. This is an in-person experience. We used augmented reality to actually first take the kid and transform the kid into a germ fighter. So that face would be a real kid. And now all of a sudden they have their germ fighter name, their badge, which is printed out, and they have basically their license to fight germs, across the universe. And so the first thing you do when you have a superhero is you have to give them their mission. So we wanted to educate kids about where these germs exist. And so the first games were sort of I Spy, very simple, find the germ type games where the kids got to interact with touch screens to actually uncover where the germs are hiding. The next one was the science of a sneeze, and this one was fun in that we embedded an air compressor into the experience. So as our little character sneezed, it actually blew air into the students' faces and surprised them all, and we captured photos of them all screaming because they think they're getting sneezed on. Lots of fun. We created a fake electron scanning microscope. So the kids could put their hands under the microscope and see all the fun, creepy crawlers that potentially are on their hands. And then we gave them a challenge of basically scrubbing away the germs by properly washing their hands. And the last experience was when to wash. Knowing when to wash is very important for hygiene. As you can see here, it's important to wash after touching rabbits. They're promiscuous little beasts, so we wanted to convey that. But all sort of fun games, all built around the idea of engagement. And I think once Lysol and the entire team really started to see these experiences, they said, you know what, we can't just show this to a small group of people, we want to have this travel. So the idea of putting all of these games, or basically gamifying the entire back of a bus, became the big idea of how we're going to get more scale, how we're going to actually reach more students than we have in the past with this program. So, armed with games, this bus set out around the country to meet with elementary school kids and teachers. And really what I think the experiences within the bus showed us is that, one, you can take the same old content and create an experience around it and really push to make things different, and it can break through. And that's really a testament, that's really a mindset. If you think about how easy it is to actually just gravitate to the same old idea, or when you look at a competitive analysis of your industry and you see what everyone else is doing, it's really easy to do just another iteration of that. But this idea really became a testament to the team at Genuine, who wouldn't settle for that, who wanted to do something completely different. And that's where this great idea started. And it falls in line with the principle that we have, which is basically, if people are doing, they're retaining. And that's the basis of adult learning theory. We call it user learning theory because we're focused on the user. But it's basically, how can we activate people from a passive viewer into an active participant into the program? And so whether it's children or whether it's adults, we're really focused on making sure that people are an active part of the overall program. So we now have an experiential idea. It's games in a bus. It's actually touching students across I shouldn't say that. It's actually, only schools and teachers are using it right now. No one else has an idea about this program. So how do we expand that? So we took the games and simply made them mobile. Now we have a way to distribute a mobile campaign to teachers around the US. Very simple extension. Once we saw the enthusiasm by the teachers, we thought, wouldn't this be great to get moms involved? Moms should be as enthusiastic about keeping their kids germ-free during cold and flu season as they can. So moms do get involved. We started posting tips, tricks, and contests on Facebook that allowed parents to actually feel like they've gained some control over their child's cold and flu season. So then that's when it really started to expand into the public space. And lastly, this is where the title of when below the line becomes above the line came into play. As Lysol started to see the actual experience of the bus, they saw children having fun, teachers engaged, people actually laughing and having a good time when it comes to hygiene. They said, you know what, let's kind of put our plans for our Q4 spot on the side. This is our new spot. So we simply showed the authenticity of the value that Lysol is providing to the community, and it became a much more authentic view on Lysol's mission for health, which is something that they haven't really shared with the rest of the world before. So the impact, the results were great. There was an 8-figure increase during the 2 months in sales during the 2 months of when this was posted. Most importantly, I think, and coincidentally, yesterday, this article came out in Ad Age with how Reckitt Benckiser became digital at heart, and that's really this project.
Consider it. Maybe over medicine, maybe not, but maybe it'll be a closer second than it is right now. So that's it. Thank you. But first, a little background on me. My wife and I together make up one brain. It's kind of sad, but it's true. My wife's a pediatric chief at Harvard Vanguard. She definitely works on one side of the brain. As a creative guy, I definitely work on the other. We kind of joke that together we make up one whole brain. Truth be told, she probably is responsible for maybe 3/4 of that brain, and me a little bit less, but we'll use it half and half for the example. But a few months ago, we were sitting at the kitchen table, and my kids, I've got an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, my kids were sitting around, they told us what they wanted to be when they grew up. And my son said, I want to play in the NHL. I said, all right, sounds good. Might want to think about a plan B, but sounds good. And my daughter, who was 6, said, I want to be a doctor so I can help people. And then she paused, and she looked over at me. She said, well, if that doesn't work out, I guess I'll make commercials. So it's kind of telling, that her plan B was, a distant second to the field of medicine, and I can see it. Most of the time we're pushing products that people can't afford and they don't want, and in medicine you're helping people. But once in a while we get the opportunity to do something a little more, and that's when it becomes special. And that's when we're approached by certain clients. In this case, the Partnership for Drug-Free America approached my agency, Hill Holliday, to help them with a program that they call the Medicine of Use Project. And by doing something like this, I think we start to elevate the industry so that we become a little higher up on that scale of mobility when it comes to career selection. So, Medicine of Use Project, what is it all about? It's about prescription use amongst kids. And when we got into this, there was a few stats that were pretty telling and somewhat alarming. 2,500 kids per day abuse pills for the first time, So it's becoming the new drug of choice for these kids over pot and over mushrooms, etc. 39% of all overdoses are attributed to prescription drugs. That's more than heroin, cocaine, mushrooms all combined. So it's a huge issue, and I think most people are aware of it, but they're not aware of really the scale of the issue. So, we had our work cut out for us. The budget on this thing was zero. We had no money to spend. We had to get full donations, and anyone involved had to give up their time and anything needed to pull this off. So it was a big challenge. But the first thing we did was we looked at how do we attack this. In the past, most drug campaigns have attacked it by creating awareness amongst kids, which kids quickly ignore. So we said, let's go to the source and let's attack it at the source. Where are these drugs coming from? So I think most of us think, okay, they're coming from the shady guy at the street corner that looks like this. But in reality, they're coming from mom who had knee surgery a few months ago, and maybe has a bottle of Perks left over in the medicine cabinet in the bathroom. And that's where the kids are getting these pills. And then they bring them to the parties, they share them with their friends. That's really the source. It's not from the dealer, it's from the medicine cabinet at home. We also think, maybe this is the guy responsible for dealing, but in reality it's grandma. Grandma's got a whole medicine cabinet full of goodies that kids can tap into, and the odds are grandma's not really watching those pills too carefully, so the kids can steal a few here and there, and no one will notice. So we thought, how do we attack this target? So we kind of shifted the focus of the campaign from the kids to the source. So we wanted to focus on the parents, the grandparents, the people that are responsible for providing these drugs. Obviously, they're unaware of it, and it's unintentional, but they are truly the source. So we wanted to create a battle cry that would give them something that they could do, something they could actively do, rather than just create awareness, tell them something they could actively do. And we came up with this line, Mind Your Meds, that became sort of the theme for the work that you're going to see. And Mind Your Meds is fairly active, It's a definitive action that we're asking people to take. Keep an eye out on the medicine that's in your medicine cabinet, and just make sure it's staying out of the wrong hands. So how are we going to do this? Once we had the theme line, we thought, okay, how are we going to attack this? We're going to have a layer of mass communication, and then also a layer of more tactical stuff and more immersive stuff. But first, we needed to partner with somebody to pull this off. And when it comes to television, there are hard costs that you can't overcome. The average spot's a few $100,000. So we were looking at doing 2 TV spots with no money. So we said we need a partner in crime here. So of course we partnered up with Lance from Pulp Fiction, a great drug dealer, if you remember him from Pulp Fiction, otherwise known as Eric Stoltz, the actor. So we actually partnered with Eric. Eric is a director. He directs mostly episodic stuff. And at the time, he had been directing Glee, a bunch of episodes of Glee. And it was the same time that Corey Monty had overdosed from prescription drugs. And when we reached out to Eric's production company, they said, wow, this is amazing timing, because not only is Eric interested in getting into the commercial world, but a good friend of his just OD'd for prescription drugs, so this kind of hits home. So Eric partnered up with us, Interrogate, his production company, ate the cost, and they helped to kind of create at least the level of mass media that we needed to kind of kick this thing off. So it was, you know, again, you're asking a lot from the agencies and production companies to pull this type of stuff off, but if it's for a good cause and it resonates with people, it's not hard to find partners. So partnering with Eric, we created 2 TV spots that sort of laid the foundation of the campaign. And he's actually the voicer over on these spots as well, and I'll just kind of play them for you. Pretty simple.
Who else has been taking your prescriptions? Keep your medicine and your family safe and secure. Mind your meds. To learn how, visit the partnership at drugfree.org. Who else has been taking your prescriptions? Keep your medicine and your family safe and secure. Mind your meds. To learn how, visit the partnership at drugfree.org.
So that was kind of the level of mass media that we had out there. The spots are very simple, and that was kind of by design, both from a production cost standpoint, just conceptually we wanted to keep them fairly simple and somewhat sobering. So those ran on programming that targeted parents and grandparents. And then we wanted to sort of take it to a level further and get a little closer to the actual kind of point of purchase of these drugs. So we partnered with pharmacies around the country, and we created these custom pharmaceutical bags. So what would happen is once you go to pick up your scripts, say for knee surgery or what have you, you'd actually get this bag. And once they drop the pills in the bag has different images on it that kind of raise awareness of this issue. So in this case, it looks like a young woman is actually swallowing that entire pill bottle. And then there's a little message on the bag that says, "Are you the only one taking your medication? Mind your meds." And we go on to explain sort of how you can better protect your medicine. We kick them to a website where there was a whole program that showed how you could properly dispose of your medication, how you should monitor them, and sort of the issues at hand. And we did a bunch of these bags. They're different conceptually. In this one, you see a bunch of young teen hands sort of grabbing upward. So again, imagine that pharmacist dropping that pill bottle into this bag. It's just kind of an interesting way to get the message out at the point of purchase in the pharmacies themselves. So we did a few of these, and again, they were distributed amongst pharmacies around the country. And then what we also did was we included in certain prescriptions where there are prescriptions that kids are likely to steal, you know, the perks and the oxys and whatnot. We included a sheet of a very simple, these are just like labels that have each day of the month. And basically what we would ask is the person would just seal up their bottle after every time they use it, so they can keep track if it's been broken and if one of the kids in their household has kind of broken into it or stolen any of their pills. So like a really simple solution. We had more complex solutions where we had custom kind of bottle caps that were designed to sort of tally the number of pills left, but this was kind of the cheapest solution, and sometimes the cheapest solution is often the best because we were able to get it out in mass. So those were kind of how we attacked it at sort of the ground level. And then this is a piece that we're going to roll out this year. We didn't have the funding last year to do it properly, so we're looking to fund it this year. And what this is a more experiential piece. So we're going to create the world's largest medicine cabinet, which will house 22,134 prescription bottles, which is the number of kids that died last year due to prescription abuse. And in that medicine cabinet will be all those bottles, and it will have the first name of each person that OD'd on the pills. And what will happen is you'll also be able to interact with this in a digital sense. There'll be a digital version of this that will live online, and you'll be able to actually scroll through those bottles and names, and there'll be certain hot points in that field of 22,000. Once you interact and you click on those hot points, you'll be able to see short-form documentary videos on that particular boy or girl that OD'd on the drugs, or pull up newspaper articles on the story of the kid that OD'd. So taking the real stories and building them into this experience. And it's, you know, when you see 22,000 prescription bottles all at once, it's a pretty alarming thing. But again, that's what we're rolling out next year. And you know, at the end of this thing, you know, we do a lot of work as an agency. I think all of us, you know, in this business do a lot of pro bono work. I think, you know, when you start out, you do it for awards. Sometimes you do it for the social good. As you get older, you do it more for the social good than you do for the awards. And this thing, you know, this thing won us a lion last year, this past year at Cannes. But you know, I'm honest when I say that, you know, if it saved one kid, that's worth a heck of a lot more than a gold lion. So you know, that's really our goal here. And I think if we start to do more work like this, even if it's for very small budgets, we'll maybe start to move advertising up on that list of acceptable careers, and my daughter Madison will maybe...
Has changed about creativity in the agency business over the course of the past few years, and what kind of changes you anticipate in the future? Kevin, you want to start that?
Sure. This is my time. I think, you know, everything has changed. I started in this business in '96, and you know, just the way we approach problems from a creative standpoint is completely different. You know, back in the day, you know, you start in print and TV, and you kind of go down the list. Now you conceive more organically and more holistically. You come up with that bigger thought, and then you find the mediums that allow you to best express that thought. And you know, personally, I find it a heck of a lot more interesting than it used to be. You know, I mean, digital gives us the opportunity to do things that we never could. But I think, you know, you have to be careful that you don't sort of have the technology jump in front of the actual idea. You still need that core idea, and you can just express it in different ways.
I think the biggest shift that we're focused on is that the user really defines what's created, not necessarily the agency or the client. You know, more so than ever. So really focusing on producing content, experiences, and advertising that the user actually loves. And I think that shift is more apparent through analytics. We get to see firsthand how content travels or doesn't, or you know, what people think about videos or not. So you know, having the user in charge is really the biggest shift that we're focused on.
I think it's a really interesting question. I think in some ways, creativity has not changed at all, in that it's still about really understanding your audience at a deep level and then coming up with big ideas. But what has changed is you know, really kind of what Evan was referring to, that you have to know a lot more as a creative person what the possibilities are. And even if you have an idea that sounds impossible, there's probably a way to pull it off with all the digital technology that we have today. So I really think we're in a much better place for creativity than we were.
Okay, we have a question from the audience.
It's primarily for Chris, but I'm sure everyone could answer. I was curious when you said that you had the 8% lift in revenue for the hand washing client, but how do you, and with that whole thing is gone above the line, how do you, if you're doing a digital piece for brand awareness, not direct response, I'm curious how you measure things like, you know, your ROI?
It's a great question, and we measure it differently for each client. And usually it comes down to the philosophy of how they measure their traditional. So sometimes if it's brand awareness, we're measuring top line, you know, traffic stats, you know, basic things like that. Sometimes the client is more interested in an engaged audience in addition to awareness, so we're measuring how long someone's spending on the site, what actions they're taking. There's no real concrete definition. This is what I've learned from client to client. You have to make sure that you're actually creating a metric that they can get behind and they can believe in. Metrics are in the analytics. You can cut analytics any way you want. All that matters is that the client can see it, understand it, and let it drive their business, or we can see it and let it drive our creative. So there's no one answer to that. But it's a great question. Every client has the same question. How do we do that? There's no one.
Do you ever kind of dig into it? Like, because there's a key couple of words you can use there, like philosophy and belief, which I don't understand. Do you ever dig into it? You kind of get the sense that you have no idea whether this is the right thing to be acting or whether this is valuable.
in terms of the work that we do.
No, not so much the work you do, but like you might have a client who's like, yeah, I want shares, or I want whatever, but you kind of get the sense they don't really have a structure above that because they want shares. I think that's a good thing to do.
In that case, we're doing a lot of defining for the client, what they need to be looking at from our perspective. And we're always trying to get to the point where we can see measurable sales results. That's the holy grail. And luckily with a lot of our social media advancements and how we connect the point of purchase to social, we can actually see the effect. So in that case, we define it for the client.
And another question.
I run a small boutique agency just over Boston here, Newburyport, and we're challenged with being an integrated agency, often creative one day, inbound another day. I'm curious what kind of a conversation you guys are having about inbound. Is it becoming a profit center, and how are you balancing it within your organizations?
Who wants to start that one? All right.
Yeah, I think inbound really has become part of the fabric of our thinking. And the way that we approach it is that we make sure that whatever big idea that we have, is able to work in the inbound world. And one piece of philosophy that we stand by a lot at White Rhino is that, well, I think a lot of inbound marketing has to do with creating blog posts and white papers and infographics and all that kind of, and that stuff is really valuable. It's great. We're always thinking, how can we push that further? I mean, does the world really need another white paper? So how are there other types of really engaging content that you can create that feels a little bit more like creative and less like the standard content that's out there? Ultimately, inbound is about building trust, and it just builds trust in a different way than your messaging does.
Okay, we'll go to the next question. I think we've got time for one more.
Chris, I like that you have the picture up of the people working together so well. Could you guys describe the teams? You've talked about the ideas and shown us, here's the start, here's the finish. What are the teams, what are the skills, and how are the skills that you're looking for your teams changing with as digital management?
Kevin, you want to start?
Sure. I mean, I think the stock photos were funny, but it's a serious challenge. I think more than anything, you need people that can collaborate with a lot of different disciplines. And on any given assignment, you might assemble the team based on that assignment, and the team's changed. It's not always the traditional art director writer team. You've got technologists in there, so you need people that can really work and are more fluid. You can work with lots of different people. So we staff it differently depending on the assignment, and I think you need to have those resources at any agency, that you've got the ability to sort of reassemble a different kind of dream team, if you will, given the challenge of the assignment. But it does ask for people to be more collaborative, but I think the results are much more interesting when you start to add other layers. I mean, what Chris had showed was working with other agencies. I think that adds a whole other sort of monkey wrench into the things, because obviously you've got different motivations and different agendas in that case. But it can work.
I think we have a process we call blender. And instead of pairing a typical an art director with a copywriter, blender is about bringing all aspects of the agency together, and especially as a digital agency, that's what we have to do. Sometimes our big ideas come from developers, analytics folks. It really doesn't. It's timeless. It's all about getting together and coming up with the best idea possible.